am a decision confidence builder. I lead Personal Finance Reimagined, a decision-making and financial education platform. So all year long, every month, we handle a different decision topic, focused really on decisions that have significant financial implications. So the college decision is actually so significant that we do 2 months with that. We're going to do one this month, and then we do one in the spring as well. We're going to be focused on all things college decision making all month long. So I feel very fortunate and blessed to have two good friends, as well as two high impact people in the college decision space with us today. So allow me to introduce first Justin Chezem. Justin is the head coach of CNU's or Christopher Newport University's men's soccer team. And then we have Scot Cooper, who's the founder of Matchplay Recruit. Matchplay Recruit focuses on college athletics recruitment, and they're a platform that connects players, parents, and coaches. So today we're going to be very focused on what you might think is a subset of general college decision making. But if you think about it, generally making a college decision as a high schooler and the family is complex enough as it is. But when you jump into an overlay, and now I'm going to play a college sport on top of it, it actually becomes even more complex. So I think our discussion today, while very focused on the college athlete, or on the student athlete rather, will be really, really useful for all folks as they're thinking about their college journey. Okay, so really we're going to cover two things today. Thing one is, I'm going to turn this first one to Justin, is to really talk about what's gone on in college athletics. So my son Daniel graduated from CNU, played for Justin, and I can remember back when he was in high school, it was a complex process, right? And for sure, of all four of my children, his was probably the most challenging to help him with. But a lot's changed, and I think Justin will share that with us. There's NIL, name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, changing NCAA rules. But anyway, so Justin, I'd just really be great for you to just kind of bring us all up to speed. What's going on? What are some of the challenges, and perhaps some of the best practices that parents and students can think about? And then Scot, we're going to turn to you, and your question is really focused on what you do with Matchplay Recruit. You're providing a solution. You're a startup, you're new, you're growing, you have amazing ideas, and a solution that's completely unique. So tell us a little bit about, after listening to Justin, kind of what you're thinking about in terms of how Matchplay Recruit is going to be at the center of helping those high schoolers and their families make sure they make the right student athlete decision. So anyway, with that backdrop, Justin, I want to go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here. Of course, Jeff, we go way back. You and Patty, love you guys. And yeah, you're right. We coached Daniel. That was such a fun time. And actually, he's part of this discussion because his process, as hard and as difficult as it was back then, is so easy and so peaceful compared to what the kids are dealing with nowadays. And it's interesting watching his success. It's interesting watching the nastiness of COVID and what it did for his future and how he turned it into a positive with his brother. And it's cool to see, the Hulett crew, having such success right now. It's fun to see. It's really great to stay connected, though. That's what I appreciate the most. So thanks for having us. And absolutely, I'll just jump right in. This is if I was a kid from graduating the year COVID happened to today, this year, in my opinion, is the worst year. It is the hardest year to find a home. And it sounds like, why are we still talking about COVID? Like, we're so far beyond COVID, and the fifth years are done this year. And while there's a lot of truth to that, all of the trickle down and the pile up, or whatever you want to call it, is starting to push its way through. And then you're just throwing in transfer portal, throwing in NIL, and then throwing in this brand new NCAA initiative that is just really putting everybody in a hold on. Let's wait and see what are we even dealing with here. We don't even know what it looks like. And I'm talking as a coach right now, not even the moms and dads and kids that haven't even gone through the process yet. So I feel really, really bad for the classes right now. And I love that we're trying to get out as much information as possible. And my best advice would be continue to look for the information because we're still figuring out a lot of it right now. And I'll kind of go through what I'm talking about here. So when COVID happened, all of those kids kept their eligibility. And so there were kids they called the 5th year COVID eligibility. And that is wrapping up this year. I've got my final kid who's sticking around for a COVID 5th year. But they also have what they, referring to as COVID 6 years. It's not really a COVID one, but there are kids that also picked up injuries, were able to redshirt, and then had their COVID on top of that. So COVID eligibility is still trickling down into next year as well.
Wow.
And so you have that, log jam of extra players that are still playing Division I and down. So you still have some players there that are, bloating rosters as I've referred to it the last few years. And so you have that domino still in effect, even though it's much smaller than, the last 2-3 years.
So Justin, just to add on to that, so I'm imagining the difference between, and I'm thinking about your mindset as a coach recruiting. You've got a 5th year, 6th year, 22, 23, 24 young man, seasoned,
right?
And then you're trying to recruit 17-year-old skinny skin beans, right? That are still kind of boys, perhaps, or boyish. I could have just imagined the competition, the difference between a 17-year-old and a 23-year-old is just massive. And I don't know if that affects how you think about recruiting.
Well, it thinks about how I think about it in the competitive arena. I mean, when a kid comes in and when they check in, most of the time they're skin and bones, and they're not, to your point, they're not men yet. They haven't been in our weight room. They haven't been with our diet situation. They haven't played collegiate sports yet. And so they're green, they're raw, and they have to figure that out. And a freshman in the spring for me is 15 pounds heavier with muscle and athleticism and 6 months seasoned athlete in the college level. That kid alone, just 6 months later, is significantly better than the kid I had when he checked in. And so, to your point, if this is what college coaches think, if I can hop on the portal, find a transfer that's 4 years of college experience, that's just looking to get his master's degree with that 5th year of eligibility. Yeah, that kid's plug and play, and I don't need to teach him everything and run him through our weight training and run him through our diets. I mean, he's plug, play, ready to go. And so, if you're talking the trickle down from the tippy top of Division I soccer all the way down, I'm just a Division III soccer coach, and I'm thinking that way. So what do we think the ones that are at the very top of Division I, your big name schools, of course they're thinking that way. They have to be thinking that way. And so that affects a 16, 17-year-old right now trying to be recruited. I mean, when I can look do I take this kid now, or do I go get these 3 transfers and they're going to help me win today? And, it's obviously it's a program's decision. Not every program's the same, but that does affect a 16, 17-year-old right now trying to make a good college decision. Absolutely.
Right.
The next biggest one right now that, you'd mentioned NIL and transfer portal. So you got the name, image, and likeness. I mean, Jeff, I think there's a chance your son was one of the first few NIL deals of all time.
It's pretty funny, actually, that the story of you. I'm going to say this really quick. The story of you call Daniel. He does one of his pieces of content using CNU facilities to drop a soccer ball into a trash can or something. I think you called him the next day. This was like in June of 2000, maybe. And you said, yeah, the AD just called me. You just might have jeopardized your entire eligibility.
Right.
And that was literally the week before NIL hit. And you call him a week later and said, oh, Daniel, don't worry about it. This is perfectly fine.
Yeah, go sign some contracts. You're good to go, buddy. Yeah,
he was freaking out for that week. I have to tell you, though. No doubt.
Absolutely. It's like it's weird. All the rules are weird. I mean, if you would have done it off-site without CNU gear, it would have been fine. Like it's just an odd thing. And then sure enough, he signs something, like a day or two after it was legally able to be done. And of course, you could check in on his history and what he's been doing the last few years. So, definitely exciting. I saw, was he with the Quakes? Is that the latest thing he did?
Yeah. They just did some stuff with the San Jose earthquakes out, in San Jose, California. So, it was very cool. They've done stuff with Man City.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's they're taking it. Certainly, they learned a lot about soccer from from coaches like you.
No, it's exciting to see all that stuff. But to the back to the point here, NIL and transfer portal have kind of gone hand in hand. I mean,
Right.
you could read about it online right now with the big dogs, the basketballs, the footballs, where kids are using it as business decisions. They're choosing a school because that school is able to offer them through
Right.
some sort of NIL a ton of money. And then it doesn't stop just because you have them in your house. The famous one right now, the UNLV kid, the football quarterback, he just quit the team and left and entered the portal midseason. They were, I think, 5-0 or something, and he just
Right.
left because of an NIL decision, a financial decision. And I mean, I haven't made too many six-figure decisions in my life, so I can't imagine what an 18, 19-year-old will be thinking when you have that large of a number sitting in front of you, and you're talking changing your family dynamics. It's just
Right.
wild right now, and so those are kind of going hand in hand. And continuing with the transfer portal, this is the part where I think it's the hardest now for the current crop of seniors. The NCAA has a brand new initiative that all sports Division One can jump into. And we're soccer, so I'll kind of stick to soccer, and I'll give you as much as I understand about it, which is grassroots. We're talking 10, 15%, which is why I think there's so much uncertainty moving forward. But let's pretend I'm the University of Texas men's soccer program. They don't have one, so we're going to use them. So there's no getting after them. So let's pretend they're just as good as their football team. They're number one in the country. Well, right now, the rule is they're allowed 9.9 men's soccer scholarships through the NCAA with no roster cap outside of any Title IX restrictions their school might have. And so now, if they decide to opt in to this brand new NCAA initiative, they have to drop their roster size to 28, but they have the potential to give every single one of those 28 players a full athletic scholarship. And
Whoa. No
right. And so
way.
that's 28 full rides potentially. Now, if the school says, look, we're not going to afford all this, you can opt in, but we're capping you at
Wow.
15 or something like that. That's still a massive jump in scholarships.
Oh
And that's
yeah.
one school across the country. And so,
And geez, that's the past where it was 9.9, right?
right. So the 9.9 is ending now. Now, unless you opt out. Now, if you stay out of it, let's say a smaller school, let's pretend Christopher Newport's a Division I program. We're a smaller school. We're not going to opt in. We have to now stay at that other scholarship restrictions. But I can have 40 players if I wanted to have 40 players. So let's also pretend the University of Texas has 40 guys currently on the roster. Well, simple notes are,
Yeah.
well, you have to cut
They're gonna
12.
have to cut 12 of them.
Well, it's now put your thinking cap on. They're going to have to cut way more than 12. Let's say they're only graduating 5.
Oh, I
And
see what you
so they're
mean.
cutting 7 to get to 12. No, they're going to probably cut down to 20. And then now they have 8 full rides that they can just hand to, in soccer specifically, you have the international situation. You've got the
Mhm.
transfer portal where they're going to just jump side to side and go snag some really, really, really good kid at maybe a good D1, but they can't offer as many full rides. They'll just go take that kid for a full ride. And, to your point earlier, does the University of Texas men's soccer team, assuming they have one, go get a 17-year-old freshman and give that kid a full ride? Or do they go get a 20-year-old that just missed out going pro internationally, or a really, really good D1 kid that's looking for that big scholarship
Right.
and is willing to leave his current school in the transfer portal? And I think it's pretty easy to know where they're going to at least start. They're
Right.
going to probably start with what can I bring in? Can I bring in 8 game-changing players day one for free? I can just pay for them to be here. And so
Wow.
that's where the trickle down begins. And so you're going to see a ton of chaos as soon as these seasons wrap up, which is coming up. I mean, I
Right.
have 6 regular season games
Right.
left, and then I'm in my playoffs the first week in November. And that's when everybody's in their playoffs. And when you get to the playoffs, that's when you get eliminations, and that's when you get seasons are ending. And that's when you'll start to see coaches and athletic directors and presidents speaking to these programs and telling them, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
And then the
Right.
next day, you're going to see, hey, Johnny, hey, Justin Chezem, we're letting you go, buddy. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're going to move into a different direction. So the
Wow.
transfer portal, in our opinion, we don't know for sure. You're going to see thousands of kids popping in day one.
But to be clear, D3 CNU it doesn't impact, right? You didn't have any athletic scholarships to begin with. You still won't have any athletic
Well,
scholarships. So
it does
this could
affect
be
us.
a benefit to you, right? Meaning you'll have
Correct.
lots of kids hitting the transfer portal, so it's all going to trickle down, and really, really good D3 programs like you are going to go, okay, I'll take that one. I'll take this one. I'll,
Sure.
you know.
Well, that's exactly right. And so, you're thinking as a kid, like, oh, okay, so with all that chaos, I'll just stick to Division 3. It's like, all right, well, now be a Division 3 coach. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to look in the portal, and I'm going to see 20, 30 Virginia kids that I was recruiting that I lost to these Division 1 programs that are now cut and free agents. And I'm like, man, I already have a relation with that kid. I have his cell phone number. I can talk to him right now. He's got 3 or even 4 years of eligibility, and he's a seasoned Division 1 trained kid for a year with the weight room and their diet and playing against Division 1 kids for a year. Of course, for the competitive reasons, I'm going to put a ton of
Right.
stock and a ton of value in those kids. And so, I'm not going to speak for all programs. We're only losing 5 kids this year to graduation, and one of them's a kid that tore his knee. He's not even playing this year. So it's really only 4 of my guys are leaving. So I'm being super patient and super picky because I only need to replace a couple, and I know what's going to happen in about 40 days. I know that
Right.
there's going to be mass exodus. I know there's going to be a ton of kids, and I have a feeling those kids are going to want to, well, let me try to get a different scholarship and go here. And
Right.
I'm sure that's going to be in play. But I mean, there's going to be thousands and thousands of kids trying to get
Wow.
just a few of those spots. And so it's going to be wild. And last
Hmm.
year, for example, we went down to South Carolina and to Florida for the 2 big ECNL events, and almost like 95% of the kids were still uncommitted by then. And you're talking one of
Wow.
the biggest tournaments in the country, and great soccer players all over the place, good soccer teams everywhere. And most of those kids were not committed. And I think it's going to be even worse this year. I think it's going to be even later. And
So,
that's why I feel really bad for these kids.
wow. So Justin, you paint, so from the standpoint, so there's sort of pluses and minuses here for everybody, but since we're focused in on high school students and their parents, this does not paint a good picture from a
Right.
competitive standpoint from them. But what I'm also might takeaways really are, it was a complex process before. It's even more challenging now. We do have a little bit of pig in the python issue with all these rule changes. It may not be as bad in a couple of years, but for those that are 2025 graduates from high school, this could be a challenge, is sort of what the message I'm hearing. So what I was hoping to do now is let's sort of shift gears here a little bit to Scot Cooper. And Scott and I have been working together. We've known each other not as long as you, Justin, but for a little while now. And Justin, Scott, I love what you're doing with Matchplay Recruit. I love the whole idea of the platforming and really trying to drive some rationality, let's call it, to a process that has seemed so difficult over time. And what I just heard from Justin is it is a ripe environment for transforming and disrupting the recruitment process. And in many ways, it's a process that's, you can't even call it disrupting if the process was working particularly well before. I would argue you're not really disrupting much as you are creating. But anyway, so why don't just jump in, Scott, and talk a little bit about what Matchplay Recruit is, but then talk about, maybe you can hit on some of the specifics that Justin brought up as some of the challenges that you're going to help solve.
Yeah, I think this is a process that my son went through being recruited, and experience was, despite having friends who were college coaches, was extremely overwhelming. And that was 5 years ago. My son's in his 5th year now, and it's become even more overwhelming. Just in the 10 minutes that Justin's been talking, it's evident that this thing isn't getting any easier. And so, what the idea behind Matchplay is to try to help uh, recruits and their families understand what the priorities are for them as they're looking for colleges, and finding the right fit for, their college experience. And that's all based on their input and our output from a data standpoint. And what's crucial is, and Justin and I have a podcast, and I can't tell you how many times we've heard college coaches say, find the right fit. Use the knee injury. If you blow out your knee and your career ends, are you going to be happy at Christopher University or wherever you choose to go? And that's a huge part of what Matchplay is doing. Is you put in what your priorities are and what your criteria is for choosing a school, and we tell you, what are potentially good fits for you. And then you add in the sport aspect of it as well, where you're seeing how you fit in as a college athlete with specific programs. And landscape is changing, as we just heard. And so, as a college or as a high school senior engineer, where do I fit is a huge question that kids and families need to be asking. And I don't know how you answer that. I mean, it's so difficult now. Justin may have an injury to a fifth-year center back or a fourth-year center back, and all of a sudden he has a knee, and that's hard to know that. So it's super important to get a grasp of where you fit in. Do I want to be close to home? Do I want to go to a school with a giant football program or a basketball program? Do I want to have Greek life? Do I want to have an engineering program? There's so many factors that we're helping kind of filter that down so that you end up with some choices that you can truly evaluate from there. And then as you get into the athletic piece of it, what we're doing is matching you to schools that are looking for you, basically, your profile. And there's so many programs out there, and there's a growing number of kids who play soccer, who have the dream of playing college soccer, and it's a big wide open landscape out there, and it's pretty regional at times. And so the hope is that this opens things up on a broader scale so that kids are seeing opportunities in places other than close to home, if that's their desire. So yeah, that's I think that answers your question, in describing what Match is.
Well, Scott, actually, I have like a specific question. I know enough about Matchplay that you kind of sit between the high school student and their family and the college coach, like a Justin or other coaches that may be interested. And so it acts like a marketplace, which is kind of, like the new sort of digital marketplaces. Think of an Amazon for consumer products, but this is going to be a marketplace to help connect, right, the students, their families with the right college program. So what I remember is there's two specific parts of it. There's the part where you help the students understand where they fit by actually getting input from the college coaches themselves. And then, so that's one side of it. So that's sort of, to me, the external view, but an expert external view from the coach. But then you have more the internal view, which is the psychosocial assessment that you developed, I believe, with William and Mary, to give them insight in terms of where they are emotionally and psychologically to be successful at college. And you kind of bring those two dimensions together as a way to really help rationalize it. Could you talk a little bit about how those pieces work?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the psychosocial piece, there's a certain profile that coaches are looking for. I'm sure that there are certain psychological profiles that appeal to Coach Chezem. Like I'm sure that he, when he thinks of a kid that's going to be on his team, it's within a certain parameters, I guess, that he's looking for, and that's based on his personality and the culture of the team as much as anything else. And there are different types of coaches, different personalities of coaches that can work with kids that might work with Christopher Newport, for whatever reason. So it's important that you understand that going in, that you're not going to get there and on day one. Not that you do this, geez. So I'm going to just use you as an example, though. But he's in your face and parting your hair, yelling at you, and it's not going to make you work as a college athlete. There are coaches out here that do that, and if you don't have thick skin, or that's not something that you like motivates you or whatever, then that's not the place for you, and you're going to be very happy. And that doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that you are in the wrong place, probably. And so what we're trying to do is create an understanding for kids. This is who I am, and just create an awareness so that they can then look for places that will work for them. And as far as getting feedback, I mentioned, in the beginning, I think when I first started talking was just getting an understanding of, where you are as a player and where you fit in. And Cheese, you can address this way better than I can, but you get thousands of emails a year, and I can't imagine like the number of emails that get sent out to coaches through a year. It's immeasurable, probably. And a lot of kids just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, right? And what Matchplay is trying to do is make that more focused for you and more productive. And part of being productive is eliminating options. And hopefully, as you use our system, you get more productive, and you become more effective at finding spots that you're going to have meaningful conversations with. And how many emails get sent to you or to college coaches that never get answered? And what I haven't mentioned is that there's another side to this. It's not just kids making choices; the coaches have to make choices, and this will help present the case, so to speak, of for a kid, and make him or her more intriguing to a college coach, because they're going to have a better understanding. It's not a cold call. It's not a blind date. There's some data that the coach is going to have on a kid who's reaching out to him or her, and that's super vital in creating a more effective process, especially in this day and age where you're not only competing with other high school age kids, you're recruiting transfers and internationals and whoever else is out there. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I kind of a little
yeah.
It's
no, that you did for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, if I can, I'll pile on to what Scott's saying here. We talked about a lot of doom and gloom there. There's actually a ton of positive here, and I'm one of those guys that's, you can control what you can control. You can't control the NCAA, NIL, transport. You can't control any of that. You can only control what's going on in your household with your son or daughter, or if you're the current recruiting kid listening to this, you can control your future. And so here are some options. And this is something that I believed truly that first year of COVID, when people weren't recruiting. Division I didn't even go out. I don't even know how it's possible. I guess I couldn't get COVID, but my friend Chris Norris could get COVID because he was a Division I coach, not allowed to recruit, but I was. I don't know. I'm figuring that one out, but
it's your genetics, Justin. I'm sure.
Sure. Our Division III genetics were different. So funny times. I'm sure we all have stories about that. But if you take complete control of what comes next, you're going to be just fine. And here are some options. First of all, the very, very tippy top kids, the 1% of 1%, I still see them online getting their big scholarships, going to big time programs. So that's probably not going to change. Now, to the other 99.5% of us that fall into the other category, it is going to be a delay. Okay. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a delay, and your schools that you've seen historically for kids about your level are now about to change. So here's your control. You already know your GPA. Great. Now go filter your schools based off of what's a good enough academic school for you. Boom. You just knocked out thousands of schools. All right. The next one, go look and find out where you want to go, like distance wise. Okay. How far away from home? You just narrowed it down even more. How big of a school do you want to go to? You just narrowed it down even more. And then the big one, this is the one that Scott and I kind of giggle about the most whenever we do a podcast together or whenever I'm in front of a bunch of kids. I always ask the kids, have you had the discussion with your family on how you're going to pay for school? And I have them raise their hands. And let's say there's 100 kids, maybe 12, maybe 15 have had a discussion. So you don't even know how much your family can afford for school, and you're just sitting around waiting for me to call you and hand you $100,000, which I legally can't do. But that's not how this process works. So now more than ever, you need to take control of what your 4 years or your college career are going to look like. And that includes everything outside of the sport, specifically everything that you have complete control over. You already know your grades. Hopefully, you know kind of what you want to study. Maybe you've got a couple fields of what you're interested in. You don't need to know exactly what it is, but you need to have can you have a few ideas? And if you don't know that either, just ask yourself the question, well, what do I enjoy doing the most in school? What's my favorite subject? Chances are that's also the class that you have the highest grade in. Boom. Find some areas of study that make sense in that degree area, in that degree field. And then from there, now you're narrowing it down big time. I mean, once you answer those few questions, you've now funneled, the 4,000 options down to maybe 20, 30 options. Believe it or not, it happens that quickly. And now from there, okay, let's see, I'm going to one of these schools for sure. Now let me see if I can't make the soccer or whatever sport you're playing work from there. So that's the best advice that I can give you. Now, the other extra options, I've seen a ton of kids take a gap year. And I think a gap year is awesome. That comes with a few things that you could do. I've seen kids just go to community college, stay at home, save a ton of money that way, pick up 12, 15 credits to get a huge head start, and they still play club sport or whatever sport you can play, you still play, and you go through the recruiting process one more time. So that's one step. I've seen kids say, well, I'm taking a semester and I'm going to travel. I'm going to go abroad. I'm going to, if you have the means to do that, great. I mean, you're going to come back, a much different person from that experience. It's such an amazing experience to do that. Maybe you do take a class abroad. I've seen kids pick up jobs. I'll take 2 or 3 night classes, but I'm going to work and I'm going to get a ton of experience that way. I'm just going to add that to my resume. And I'll tell you what, you learn so much about yourself in that semester, that you will now ask yourself those questions again about college, and you'll have completely different answers. It's really remarkable. So that's not only a way to save a ton of money, but it's also a chance to, all right, let me get out of this chaos. Let me kind of reset my timeline so that everything can settle down. And now I can still go find a great home, but I'm going to pick up some credits on the cheap. I'm going to live at home and not pay for room and board and all that craziness. I'm going to get a job so I can add to my resume. And next thing you know, you're a more marketable kid for 22, 23 years old than if you had just gone off to school and just got a degree. So there's still a ton of positives here. I recommend that you search those positives out and take complete control of what your next 4 years or 5 years are going to look like, because it is yours. It's ultimately your decision.
Oh, that's amazing, Justin. And my brain's spinning on so many things that you just said. One of the things, and I love what you said about community college, getting college credits on the cheap, things like that. And where my head goes to, and what we talk actually a lot about in some of our other programs, is college ROI, college return on investment, right? And the reality is you're going to graduate, you're going to graduate from college someday, hopefully, right? And you're going to have employers. Most people do not go pro. I think, I don't want to disappoint anybody, but if you make it to the college level, as few people make it from high school to college, it's even fewer that make it from college to pro. So it's very likely you'll never make a penny playing soccer unless you kind of do content creation or NIL stuff. But my point is, employers love college athletes because they're really good at putting 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag, right? And especially if they get good grades. But they also love the community college to residential college transfer narrative, because that's a narrative that speaks to smart, savvy, thinks about value, and could make that move, right? And, it's not the easiest thing in the world to go from one college to another. Transferring is, it's a thing, right? So I'll tell you, as an employer, and having worked in big firms in my life, we loved the community college to residential college kind of narrative, that what it speaks to the character and strength and kind of guile of that student. And we would, our only complaint about that, there's just not enough of them. Right?
I agree with
Maybe
you.
there will be now, but at
Yeah.
least in the old days, there certainly were. So I really appreciate what you said there, Justin.
But Jeff, you shared with me a chart, some data on the impact of making the, let's say the wrong, but a decision that where you didn't end up at the right school, and what that long-term financial impact of is. It's
Yeah,
not great.
It's massive. So I'm an economist and a finance geek, for lack of a better words, and we look at the opportunity cost to retirement, and all that really means is, like, take an example. Let's say your choice was between, and I'm gonna, not to throw Drexel under any bus, but they are a very expensive private school. So let's say you're paying 75 grand to go to Drexel, and you're paying maybe 25 grand all in to go to CNU. So that delta is $50,000 over 4 years. That's 200,000. If you play that out to retirement, that's going to be a $4 million hit to, if you had taken that $200,000 and dropped it into a 7% ETF, right, that just sort of grows over 40 years before you retire, $4 million. So the question you have to ask yourself, is Drexel worth? It's not just, I like Drexel because blah, 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 and I'm picking on Drexel. It could be any university. But the point really becomes, is it worth $4 million? And that's where you go, no. I hope that's how you go, right? Because finding value in college when college is so expensive, even if you're in state, right? It's not cheap, but going out of state or going private, to me, that's when you do the value calc and what employers are looking for, right? Trust me, what do employers want? They want people with good GPAs, not because they're smart, but because they've demonstrated that they can work hard for 4 years and provide quality. That's what a good GPA does. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. It has everything to do with how your willingness to grind and your focus on quality. That's what employers want, right? So if you can get that at CNU or that at a school that costs $50,000 more a year, there's literally no difference to an employer. So those are the sort of ROI value calculations that I think should sort of sit on top of all the good stuff that Justin was just talking about, in terms of thinking about those 4 or 5 different really important criteria, like distance from home and the program, and whether it's engineering and major, and but then overlay the the value piece of it. And then you'll find, I think, Justin, I think to your point, you'll narrow down very quickly, right? To a few schools where you get along with the coach, the soccer program makes sense, the college makes sense. The college makes sense even if you hurt yourself and you could only go to college versus playing a sport. So, you know, so that's kind of my observation. But thank you for asking, Scott.
No, absolutely. Everything there is accurate. One of my biggest pet peeves when I'm sitting down is I'll have parents sit there too, and they make the statement, well, it doesn't matter, that it's their decision. It's ultimately their decision. And I just sit there and go, well, unless you have the funds just laying around and you could just say
Right.
that and casually be okay with losing that much money, the chances are your 17-year-old is, it's good. They're going to need some assistance. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 17, my decision making was pretty poor. It's a little bit better now, but it's, it was pretty poor
Yeah.
back then. And so, it's easy to be cavalier with somebody else's money. And so I encourage parents
Yeah.
to, while you still want to give your kids the power, you have to make sure you are
Oh,
encouraging them to
100%.
look at certain things. Give them those, hey, have you thought about this? And then walk away. Let the kid think
Yeah.
about it. And,
Right.
I've got a 6-year-old. He's not looking at colleges yet. I don't know if he's going to be good enough to play sports. He's not going to fit in a helmet, and he's got big, broad shoulders, and he's short, so I don't think he's playing basketball. But
Yeah.
maybe my buddy Plotkin up there at Army will bring him in for a free education and a job when he walks off of out of West
Right.
Point there. So
Nice.
that's the number one goal for me. But I'm already thinking about it. If he's not given a big scholarship and we're paying for school, well, paying for school that doesn't mean I'm paying for you to go play soccer at the next level. I'm paying for school. And you get to
Right.
play soccer. Cool. That's nice. At Christopher Newport, you get to go play soccer. I love that. But I think ultimately you're paying for the other parts of that. He just also gets to play soccer. And so we will be 100% looking into the trades, 100% looking into that. Well, you can go to community college for a couple of years, live at home. You're going to go get a job,
Yeah.
and you'll play a little bit of soccer on top of that. But this is the path that we're going to go. It's the
Yeah.
smartest thing for our family, and I encourage our families to be sure to look that path.
See, I love that, Justin, because you're just not, kind of giving advice from this is what I've seen. This is advice from your heart, from your family. Nothing's more important than then it's real. It's kind of like a skin in the game thing. So to me, that what you just said makes a lot of sense. And actually, one thing that you brought up, and actually I'm going to quote Scot Cooper here. Scott said, part of being productive is eliminating options. And you were speaking in context of recruiting and coaches, but the exact same thing can be said for parents. And Justin, that's what you said. You can go anywhere, you figure it out. In my view, is a horrible thing to do to a 16 or 17-year-old. Like with my children, we gave them, you can go anywhere, but I'm going to give you the equivalent of 4 years of Virginia in-state tuition. So that went from the world to about 15 schools really quick. And then for Daniel, it went from 15 schools to about 2 really quick. I think that was a gift. And I didn't tell them where to go. And I told them if their heart of hearts was, I want to go to Vandy, well, we'll figure it out. We're not going to pay, but we'll figure out a way to get you there. But the truth is, they don't know where they really want to go. And by giving them those parameters, at least some guidelines, I think it just, to me, it's almost like cruel and unusual punishment to say you have the choice of 4,000 things. What?
Right.
Really?
Right.
A 17-year-old? But anyway.
Well, and one last thing for me is that one of the big pitfalls that's kind of a phenomenon over the last few years is, what it looks like on social media. And, I signed with D1, whatever, and you never step on the field and you end up training. Or one thing, I was having a conversation with another family, and, it's kind of keeping up with Joneses. What are other kids in your graduating class doing in your neighborhood? And, I feel like I need to keep up with them rather than doing what's best for me and in my future. And, it's just such a big pitfall to do that. And
but Scott, I love what you're doing, because to me, Matchplay Recruit. So to me, keeping up with the Joneses, which is like FOMO and all that business, happens because the high school student really doesn't know. So their only frame of reference is the Joneses. So they're going to keep up with them because they haven't really figured out what they want for them. To me, what Matchplay Recruit is doing is sort of like an anti-Joneses, right? Which is, how do I get really specific about what's important to me? And then the Joneses become less important because I've changed my frame of reference from the Joneses to my preference set. And that's a mature thing to do. A lot of adults don't even get there, right? And so, but to me, that's what Matchplay Recruit, if you kind of boil it down to, that's what you guys are really doing, which is really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's great.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for joining. We went a little bit longer. I promised it would be a half hour, but as usual, we went down some different roads, but I think all great conversation. But thank you again, Justin Chezem, head coach, CNU, Christopher Newport University's men's soccer team, and Scot Cooper, founder of Matchplay Recruit. Thank you, gentlemen. And by the way, for Matchplay Recruit, I will put their link in the show notes so you can check them out. And certainly you know where to find Justin in CNU Soccer. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I said hi.
Oh, I sure will.